So people talk a lot about the importance of negotiation in BDSM, and here's one thing I think they get wrong. It's not just arse covering. Yeah, sure, like, there's this fine line between BDSM and assault. That's true. But treating negotiation as just a way of not assaulting someone is doing it a massive disservice in terms of what it can offer you. Because of pandemic, it had been quite a while since Imaginatrix and I had done a rope scene together. So what we want to do is record the whole pre-negotiation so you can see what exactly we spoke about.
Stretch things. Use your face.
Use it as a...
I know I'm warming my wrists up of all the places. I mean, it can't hurt, but...
I wasn't planning on doing a lot with your wrists.
You say that now, but when I'm tired, like...
Yeah.
I'll be regretting not warming them up.
So, we used to do rope a lot.
Loads at one point.
Yeah, and then, was this like tiny pandemic thing that happened?
Yeah, that got in the way.
A small element people might not have heard of, and we stopped doing it for some time. So it kind of feels like we're not starting from square one, but I feel like we've had enough break that it's probably worth like recontextualising what we do, because we'd normally chat quite a lot about playing in it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, for sure. And even before lockdown, it's not like we have any kind of like fixed dynamic or like, you know, there's no like set of rules that we're following necessarily anyway, so
yeah,
it's good.
I
feel like we've always been, before our scenes, quite like open with talking, but then also both of us are quite flexible in the way that we play, so that just means that there's even more to talk about sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like there's a lot of different ways sessions can go. So
it's beginning.
Yeah.
Negotiate.
So, is there anything like huge you've missed that you'd be like, yeah, I really want to do that, that's like crying out to you?
Well, I haven't done a full suspension since last April, but equally, I'm not actually, although I brought that up, I'm not that like fixed on doing a full suspension.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to fly or anything like that.
Yeah.
I have missed doing like more complicated partial stuff. So it would be really nice to be with someone who felt comfortable and connected while playing with like taking away multiple points on my body and maybe being quite dynamic in the way that you tie, because the people that I've been tying with, you know, they're pretty solid riggers, but they don't necessarily have that like quick ability to kind of be flexible about how things change in the scene. And I've barely done anything like resistance ropey, because I think again that needs like, not always, but it helps when you have a certain level of knowledge and you can kind of lean into the scene a lot more that way. And I know in the past we've had some really fun like wrestly type scenes. So.
I think you need to be reasonably confident with what you're doing to have someone pull away from you when you tie in. Awesome. Okay, that's a good starting point.
What about you? What have you been playing with recently? Or like wanting to play with more?
I haven't been doing a lot of resistance recently. I have been doing a lot of suspensions, like full suspensions, which has been really cool. I've been really enjoying it. And I felt like it's been nice, like touching on my mojo and stuff. But yeah, some partials would be great. Maybe a bit of resistance. And maybe if we end up going to a full,
I'm very up for it. Don't get me wrong, like I'm into the idea, it would be nice to do, but it's also not like I have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty chill with whatever. I mean, even if we did floor rope, it would be a good time. I don't mind.
Yeah. So, you know that suspensions can be pretty uncomfortable. You've been there.
I'm prepared for that. Yeah, I've been there. I think, you know, my pain tolerances might have shifted a little bit as far as, you know, you get out of practice as a masochist. But I've not been completely without any play, so it's not like I'm coming into this cold with having no play for like a year. I think that would feel very emotionally intense for me if that were the case. But I mean, we've had scenes before where, you know, we've done full suspensions and it's taken me by surprise how emotional I've gotten.
Yeah.
There's been tears afterwards and stuff. So it's perfectly possible that that could happen. But it would certainly not be a bad thing. Like, I'd really enjoy being, you know, challenged. And as far as the pain of suspension, I'm kind of looking forward to it if we head in that direction. I'm looking forward to having that masochistic thrill of rope. And I'm pretty comfortable that I will weather that. It just might mean that, you know, my responses are bigger than you might expect. And I feel confident that my expression of my pain hasn't changed too much. So probably you'd be able to read if you were pushing me a bit far, and I'm very comfortable with using my safe words.
Yeah, so. Awesome. Yeah, and also I guess like communicating mid-scene, if it's not a safe wordy, if it's not a level of safe word, if it's just hey, could you just...
Yeah, exactly, like a quick adjustment, just in plain language. Also, I guess, you know, if we were about to head into like a suspension that was going to be like 30 minutes long or something, I might have more reservations. But if we're playing with partials and then there's going to be part coming into the air, and again, if we are heading down the more dynamic route, then I think that will be more able to process that. Yeah.
Are you I'm assuming you're still cool with like levels of intimacy in terms of like touching face, touching body, touching neck, that sort of thing?
Yep. So everywhere except like, again, like nipples are actually fine, but I wouldn't want to have my cunt touched.
Not going downtown?
No downtown, no insertions.
No.
Fingers in mouth would be okay.
Awesome.
Prefer not to do any kissing. But other kinds of like intimate touch, nipple play, breasts and stuff, that would be good. But again, not like required. I do like breast bondage. That can be fun. I'm now moving on to like, I'm thinking about other bodily things like that I'm not so good at. Like, it's not about intimacy, but... So do you want to stay on that topic for a minute?
No.
Okay.
Just say what came in your head.
So I'm thinking about like, I love hair rope, but if my throat goes too far back, I start to panic a little bit because when I can't swallow, I find it really intense.
Yeah.
And I'm going climbing later, so I would prefer to not have too much on my shoulders, because I would like to be able to climb without masses of, you know, ache.
Okay, so what's going to likely cause an achy shoulder for you?
So strappado, for example, or something that's like quite intense, having my arms back or above my head like this.
Yeah.
I've never been very good at sustaining that anyway.
Yeah, it's quite a mean position.
Yeah, and strappado makes my hands go numb really fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome.
But other than that, my body feels pretty fine. A little achy, I've got some bruises on my legs, but they're not something to avoid. They just might make my pain responses slightly more intense. And the rest of me feels pretty fine. My back's never been very flexible. Doesn't mean I can't have a torsion or like a bit of a back bend, but I'm never going to be able to sustain that for a super long time, and I'm not going to make a particularly interesting shape.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
One thing I really love, which I know you know, but I'll remind you of it anyway, is having my like hands and feet, or like my fingers and feet tied in. That feels very intense for me. I really enjoy that.
Sensitive extremities.
And just the feeling of like full immobility is
Yeah.
just very appealing to me. Which sometimes when you feel like you can move your hands and move your feet, I don't know, there's just something psychologically that really clicks for me when my hands and feet are tied in.
I think also people subtly do self-soothing, so like we're both doing this with our hands right now. When you can't do that, you can still do that in rope because you can be tied up and be like...
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas like when it's all tied in, I think that takes it away.
Or even, you know, you can lean on elements of the rope a little bit, or think about steadying yourself. Like psychologically you think, well, if I fell this way, then I'd be able to like put my hand down. Whereas if they're gone, you're just encased.
Yeah. How do you feel about rope and stuff on your face?
I'm good. I like it. I like rope on my neck. I like rope on my face. I trust you to do those things. I kind of like getting a bit screwed up with it. Like, I've been, actually, that's probably something to alert you of. I feel like I've been on a bit of a journey with degradation over the last maybe year and a half, especially with going into hypnosis. I found that, like, I've clicked with psychological kink and degradation a lot more. So, you know, I still don't like being called disgusting or gross, but being objectified in that way that has elements of, like, screwing you up and making you more of an object, more of like a piece of meat than a person. That's quite hot.
That's interesting. I really like the idea of having a scene where we focus on that more. Like, maybe not today, because I feel like I'm feeling out a bit more, but like, I definitely like the idea of doing a scene like that. Nice. That's interesting to me.
I guess that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about rope on my face. The way that it distorts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Does it ever make you feel like at peace, like, you know, like a single rope across the eyes and things like that?
No, it doesn't really have any peaceful qualities. It's, for me, like, sense step is it intensifies everything, like most people, but in a way that is quite frightening and not very soothing.
Interesting.
Although I'd say there's an element of, like, you know, when my neck is pinned, that maybe is quite soothing. There's an element of, like, well, I can't resist now. So you kind of relax into it a little bit. But I don't get that generally with face rope.
Yeah. And neck, is that still something you're kind of cool with? Awesome.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I trust you to do it. Yeah. And I don't tend to, like, the rope doesn't tend to pinch too much my skin or anything. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm moving down the body, so we talked about boobs, that's good. Talked about downtown. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
thighs, knees, and shins. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, gratuitous shin rope for pain. Like, a bit, sure. Like, I'm into pain, but, you know, some people really, like, go to town and just lay in, and it's basically they're just twisting and twisting and twisting, and it's just not fun. It's not fun anymore. All the fun leaves. Now, I do like, I can't remember what they're called, but, like, the full leg bind, especially where it's, like, deliberately, you know, causing immobility, and, like, when you have small movements of the muscle, you feel the way the rope changes on your leg.
Yeah.
I like that, but, like, yeah, just not, like, more and more shin rope pain.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned about this a few times during classes, that I get why people do it. I think people do it because if you're new, it's a relatively simple technique and it gets a strong reaction out of people. But I feel like it's something that people maybe over-rely on sometimes.
For sure. I think that's where this, like, strong reaction in me comes from. Like, I've just had people, like, we've done a rope scene that basically is just shin pain. And, you know, it leaves me with, you know, I literally the next day will have, like, pain.
Yeah.
And, like, almost like a joint pain feeling. And it's just, I know it's not, like, medically a problem, but it's just really uncomfortable. And I don't get that much out of it as a masochist. So.
Yeah. Off topic, but I really like demonstrating doing that same thing, but with, like, taking a bit more time and thought over it. Like, using it as part of, like, a physical control thing, or as a way of, like, pulling someone around and showing someone that, yes, you are a little bitch before. That's interesting to me. Like, just going, like, hey, just go nuts on that shin. That doesn't really interest me.
No, yeah, I agree. Like, it's like, you know, the twisty, like, arm moving. Like, it's really great when used in the right context to punctuate the scene.
Yeah.
Toes are good. Tie my toes in all kinds of positions. I'm not the most flexible in any direction, honestly, but
flexibility is overrated.
I mean, it just means that you do, like, I'll be like, ow!
Yeah.
And you'll get a reaction and do so much less.
Yeah. So, like, when we're talking earlier, I feel like I want to say this just because we're recording it, but we did a thing earlier where I said to you, do you mind if I move your hands? And it's because literally we'd sat down and we'd not physically interacted other than, like, hugging. And I'm generally against when people just give lip service to negotiation So like going, may I? And like, when it's clear they've already had a negotiation, but we literally had just come in, sat down, and started doing that. Even though me and you have spoken for quite a while, I feel like it's really important to talk about the fact of it's completely fine if you don't enjoy it. As in, like, even if I do completely stick within everything me and you spoke about, it's completely cool if you think it's shit, or you don't want to do it anymore, or maybe today's not the day, or whatever. That's really important to me that, like, as a framework in which I do kink, you can say that and feel that. And sometimes that can feel a little bit disappointing as a rigger or whatever, but that is, I think that when people can say and talk about stuff like that, you generally have a much better relationship, even as play partners, and that means that you can have better scenes long term.
I agree, it's really useful, and I know that it can be quite hard as the top sometimes to like be like, this isn't quite going as I want, and or you could have put all in, and I could have described everything I wanted, and we could still do it, and something about my body that day or something about my headspace that day might just not work. So again, like, it's not really about what happens in some ways, it's just about what is. Thank you, good reassurance. Although we played so many times, like, I'm sure we've had scenes where we've both been like, that was nice, you love my world, but it's good.
5 out of 10.
And then the lunch afterwards, 10 out of 10. But we've also had scenes that have been like massively like, so good. That's just how it goes.
And I think the weird thing is like, a lot of the time, it's the shit that I thought was like throwaway, and then it's just see what happens, have been the ones that have been 10 out of 10s. Whereas the ones where I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to plan to meet up, and we're going to have some time, and it's like a build up, tend to just be like, they're nice, and I've never seen that I haven't enjoyed with you, but like, it can oddly be the times where your expectations are lower, and I don't know if it's about expectation. I think it's about presence. So I think it's about when you're just going with things and seeing what happens. That's when you kind of see what happens.
Yeah, and you're just like both in the mood. It's just been like, it wasn't the plan, but it's what's happening. So it's like, yeah, I get that. So what about the mood of the scene? If we're doing something resistance-y, if that's the direction that we feel would work, I'm into that.
Yeah, we can go with that. I'm just going to let you react. I would say main thing about that is, I'm assuming you're not going to do something stupid like punch me in the face or kick me with a roundhouse kick.
My plans.
Yeah, because if that's the case, I'll get my head guard out.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're comfortable with as far as resistance?
Like pushing away, fine. Yeah, like creating more space, that sort of thing. Things which tend to cause problems, which I think is more of an instinctive reaction to people when they're like panicking, say things like biting or scratching. I'm generally fine with any discomfort you want to put on me, as long as you're not breaking skin.
Okay.
If that makes sense, because that's like, because I've had stuff where people like bitten into my hands during a scene before, and like I kind of need them. They're kind of important.
Yeah, a little bit important to you.
Yeah.
But like slapping or like pushing. So wait, to be completely clear, a little bit of biting would be fine as long as it's not like aiming to break the skin.
Correct.
What about like? So are we going to start this from a place of like equal wrestling? Like, we've done some scenes that are quite like about almost the jiu-jitsu type body manipulation to begin with. You have to get the rope on me. Or are we going to start from that place that we do sometimes where like there's understanding that I am going to be tied up, and I give you that, and then I begin to resist?
To be honest, I'm happy with either.
Okay. Do you have any preference?
No.
That's so hard, because on the one hand, the one will make us very sweaty, like, and it's going to be like
manky.
But also, I would get a lot of joy from that. Okay, well, let's keep talking, and then we'll maybe decide as we go along.
Yeah.
What about like name calling for both of us? Is there going to be any like words that we use or don't want to be used in the scene?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. You never really talk about that with you that much.
We tend to be quite quiet. Like, historically, we've been quite quiet when we play.
Yeah, I talk about once every 6 months when I'm playing. But it has been known to happen here and there.
As a bottom, I do tend to talk less than I would as a top. But again, like, I think I can be quite taunty, especially if there's some wrestling involved.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Did I ask you about breath play, or did I just think about it?
I think you just thought about it.
Okay, how do you feel if I get my hand over your like nose and mouth?
Oh, fine, yeah.
Yeah. I'm also fine with that.
Yeah.
Tap out, should we do?
Yeah, tap's good, yeah.
And then if you can totally still do breath play while I'm in rope. That's super fun. But again, like, it would be good if I had at least a hand to snap or indicate in some way. And if not, make it real brief. Like, don't push it, because obviously I can't let you know that it's getting too far.
Yeah.
But I guess I could make a loud noise.
Yeah.
And I feel like you would read that.
Sounds of like the pattern is usually a good way of like maybe if that's.
I don't know how I feel about that these days.
Oh really?
I make a lot of grunty noises, like when I'm, struggling or whatever, and that pattern of 3, I don't know. I feel like a strange pitch is actually kind of more alerting than a series.
Yeah, maybe because I'm thinking as a bottom, and I like struggle so much with like my pitch and tone that I know I couldn't make something at a certain pitch, and so I was trying. Like if you said like do something high, I could probably go higher, but I don't know if I could hit a certain height. Yeah, that
makes sense.
But if you can do that, then awesome.
See, for example, if someone's like, oh, by the way, impact play, if you want to use anything other than rope, like I especially like hands, punching, slapping. I love like pressure and like kind of twisting. Yeah. I'm a very big fan of using hands. I'm not, like, it's not that I don't like other impact play tools. I just find them like, I don't know. Yeah. I like the physicality of someone's hand, and I like the fact it doesn't interrupt the flow of the scene. But if we were doing an impact play focus scene, then sure, other kinds of implements would be fine. They are still fine if you really wanted to use them.
Awesome.
And like, I don't think there's any part of that I would say I need to qualify, except like don't draw blood.
Yeah, that's fine. And you mentioned you're quite stiff at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a bit stiff.
Have you got any injuries or being a stiff?
No, just an old lady.
An old, very relatively young lady.
An old young lady, that's it. Yeah. No, not really. Like I said, bruises on my thighs, but...
Yeah.
And yeah, words, for me, like, I'm happy if you do speak, for you to use, like, pretty much any word you can think of that isn't, like, based in, like, race or age play. And nothing that implies that I'm, like, gross or disgusting. So, if I was drooling, for example, I wouldn't want you to be like, oh, that's so disgusting. Like, or, like, your body looks so, like, horrible when you're bent up like that or something. That would be horrible for me. But I am happy with like darker themes generally, like we talked about, but maybe that's for another day. What about you? Is there anything I shouldn't yell at you in my struggle?
No, because most of my things tend to come around from like disappointment. So unless you said something like, I'm really disappointed in you,
with the fight you're putting up here. Okay, I'll stay away from that.
I'm really disappointed with the amount of practice you put into your rope recently. That's probably the only thing that is.
Alright, I'll stick away from that.
Yeah, other than that, you're fine. Crack on.
Sweet. So I can call you like weak and things like that.
Yeah, and you're probably going to be right, actually. You're right. I probably should be able to like be in a better position right now. Thanks for bringing it up.
Should we talk about the inevitability of me just overpowering you? What's going to happen then? Do I have to like give in so that you can tie me up? I guess so.
Not unless you want to give in.
What will happen if I have you pinned?
If you have me pinned, then you've got me pinned.
Yeah.
Like, you are pretty strong and you're good at fighting, so what inevitably happens is like it's going to be like a bit of a back and forth.
ultimately I want to be tied up, so
Yeah,
it's
so you
kind of
probably
in my
won't be
interest.
too hard on that.
I'll have you pinned and then I'll accidentally fall over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh look, I fell onto the rope and it's on my hands.
It's like a banana
Terrible if
skin.
you did something. Yeah. No, you're pretty good at grappling. I think you've got a good chance.
Yeah, like if people are taking bets home, they're like, he's fucked.
They haven't seen my guns. They haven't seen my gun show.
Yeah, I mean, you carefully craft your body to like perfection.
Perfection. That's
So,
me.
and I, some could argue, do not. So
You are perfection, baby.
yeah, I am perfect in my own way.
You are.
Yeah.
So, okay, I feel like we've got a little bit of a concept of a scene. Is there anything that we've forgotten?
No, if this was a first scene, I would have made sure you knew about the risks of different types of play. But you know about the risks of rope, you know about the risks of takedown.
Yeah.
I know about the risks of rope and takedown on my end, so like I'm at risk as a top in this type of situation. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I might be sensible to put some contact lenses in.
Seems wise. I don't need my eyes as much, so I'll just take my glasses off.
Yeah.
Very wise.
We're good. You've had a little snack?
I've had a little apple snack.
Yeah.
Slowly it is sweet.
Yeah.
Too slowly, some could say. But yeah, no, I'm feeling good in my body. I'm a little hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But we made a conscious choice to decide to have lunch after the scene. So,
Yeah.
like, I guess the only other things, which again, I don't know where, are we planning to tie on the bamboo, or
I might go upstairs actually.
are you thinking of being on a post at all?
Oh, not especially.
The only thing I would say is, like, I have in the past with you, I believe, gone a little bit faint from being in a very, like, prone sort of tie on a post, which apparently does happen to people sometimes.
Yeah. Turns out it does.
Turns out it does.
Yeah.
So that would be something to be aware of, but if we're not tying on a post, then it's not really a thing.
No.
Cool. Yay!
Awesome.
Let's do the rope. Let's do the rope.
Hopefully this will put some myths to bed along the lines of negotiation is boring, or negotiation is really flat, or it's even myths along the lines of negotiation is always super sexy. Yeah, there are some elements where we're kind of flirting and playing around, but like not the whole thing. In essence, what I want to get across from this is that a negotiation can take the form of what you want it to take, as long as you're getting a good sense of what the person's interested in, what you're interested in, and how you can potentially harm them. I think it can be pretty malleable to what you want. Thank you very much to Imaginatrix for helping me do that. So our aim with this channel is to keep high quality rope and kink education as accessible as possible. The slight problem with that is that YouTube, Instagram, not the biggest fans of content like this. Theoretically, we could put adverts on stuff like this, but because they're not in love with the sort of content we produce, more often than not, what we produce gets demonetized. It would really help us out is if you drop us a like, drop us a comment, but also if you could spare like £1, $1. I've left a link to our Patreon on screen now. That would really help us out. There's also lots of goodies over there as well as a way of saying thank you. Bye.